Kiki Mama Ma. Welcome to the Cult Film Showdown Masters of Horror. I am Jim Cotta, and I'm joined by my co-star, Nick Boxer.
Greetings. I'm not doing the salutations, though.
Greetings and no salutations. Jack Hall is also here.
Get your key off my mom.
we are continuing our exploration of the 2005 to 2007 TV series Masters of Horror, produced by Mick Garris and featuring directors from horror history and horror mastery, as well as some fantastic writers and performers. And we're in the home stretch. We're doing season 2, episode 4, which is called Sounds Like. And Jack, tell us who our masters are this time.
It sounds like the director is Brad Anderson. Brad Anderson is known for thrillers and horror films, sort of in that genre. Often they're films that you could put in one category or the other. It could fit in both. Session 9 is maybe his most noted pure horror work. That was a pretty decent film. That was in 2001. He directed many episodes of Fringe. He's directed romantic comedies, directed the underrated Halle Berry thriller The Call, and The Machinist with Christian Bale. So I wouldn't call him a pure horror director, but he has got some roots in the horror. The Vanishing on 7th Street, I think, is another one that he did. So another horror film he did. So he has got some. He's kind of a very diverse director, not overly well known, but certainly competent. And he does an interesting job with this particular film. It's written by a nobody of note, unfortunately. The writer for this episode, let's put it this way: I already have forgotten the name. Is one of those people who has like a website that says I'm a writer of horror and science fiction, and then has 3 self-published books. Not a 3 self-published books, a novella, and a couple collection of short stories. So I'm not sure quite how they even found this particular person, to be honest with you.
It was, so he wrote the short story that it's based on rather than the screen. That's what it looks like.
I believe the screen was adapted by Brad Anderson himself. The screenplay, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, he's Vancouver based. He may well have just been hanging around.
Okay. So it's Mike O'Driscoll.
Mike O'Driscoll.
Yeah, who, like I say, he has a website saying that he's an author of horror films and science fiction, and that's how you know he's an author of short films and or science fiction and horror films, is because he sells
because that's what it says on the business card.
Yeah, basically.
Writer of horror and science fiction, raconteur.
But Brad Anderson, like I say, is an interesting director, and I really like The Call, and Session 9 was pretty good too. So, let's talk about his actual work in this film by getting Nick to explain what the hell happened in Sounds Like.
Sure. Sounds Like. Well, in this hour-long PSA for mental health, we get a gentleman who's obviously suffering from some sort of depression stemming from the death of his son. His sadness sort of manifests in exaggerating auditory hallucinations or just exaggerations. And the sheer volume of everyday tasks starts to interfere with his regular life, um, and just snowballs over an hour. And we watch this man just get more and more crazy until it ends in some sort of predictable manner. I mean, I called the ending of this one probably about 3 minutes in. But it was kind of fun just seeing what sounds would bug him next. I particularly like when he got upset at like people turning pages and chewing pencils.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, well, especially if you have super hearing. It's one of those ones where we don't know why he has super hearing, except for that he has super hearing, and then he commits an unspeakable act, and then he doesn't have super hearing anymore, and then it returns stronger than ever, and he can't handle it. All of this is punctuated by the fact that he's a world class a-hole. Combine that Combine that with the fact that he doesn't seem to at all be attracted to his way too hot for him and yet extremely weird wife.
Have
These
we seen
episodes.
this actor anywhere before? I didn't recognize him.
I didn't recognize him either. I mean,
Oh,
not
the
as
lead,
actor.
Chris
Oh, go
Bauer,
ahead.
the lead.
Yeah.
The lead, he's a very busy actor. He does a lot of TV. He was on True Blood. He was on. Uh, he did a series called The Deuce a few years ago. So a lot of HBO stuff, a lot of single episodes. But yeah, definitely like a workhorse actor. But he was on the entire series of True Blood.
And he's not a leading man type, put it
No,
that way.
no.
He's
He's always a supporting. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and his performance is fine. I mean, it's a difficult thing to play somebody who's kind of slowly going crazy and not go over the top too much.
And yeah, it's kind of hard to add diversity to, okay, this is really loud.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of the few times, like we talk about how there's not necessarily in these shows the biggest budget. Um, and
Mhm.
and that often doesn't hurt them. And this one doesn't really rely on special effects in any traditional way, but it is a film that's probably hurt by the fact that, or a episode that's probably hurt by the fact that it doesn't have a sound field like you would see on a modern television show now. Like if you have a Netflix show and it's Dolby Atmos or
Yeah.
Digital X or something like that from DTS and this type of thing, and you have a sound field that is really three-dimensional and with height
Sort of
and
have
different things.
Sorry, it sort of does
No, go
have
ahead.
late night CBC PBS feel to it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they did the best they could given things, but I mean, yeah, it could have used that modern technology for for the sound field that would have really probably driven this home a lot more effectively.
I think it's as someone who myself has a hypersensitivity to sound, it's hard to represent that to someone who doesn't. And that's one of the challenges of the whole show is that um, it's not that it's loud, it's that it drowns out everything else. Like it's not the volume. But Nick had mentioned the chewing on the pencil. I probably wouldn't be sensitive to that, but tapping a pen against a desk, like to distraction. But it's hard to represent that because it's about everything else fading back rather than that thing being like a rock concert loud. Watching this was a challenge because of that sensitivity and because of the way the like annoying sounds just keep rising. I had to mute nearly half this episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
especially things like alarms
Yeah.
are like they just put my teeth on edge. And like fire, like just the beep, like anything that beeps and you're not expecting it, basically.
Oh,
I only
you know
have
what? In
one
my
sound.
personal life, I have
Go
I've
ahead.
had a fire alarm do the low battery thing on it. That's a pain in the ass.
Yes, that is. That is. I only
to
have one sound that drives me crazy, and it's the sound of teeth being brushed. And it
Oh,
causes
really?
chills to run up and down the back
Wow.
of my spine. And it just, I cringe like you wouldn't believe. I've fingernails, on a chalkboard, fine. But the sound of teeth being brushed, or even a brush that bristles, like even just thinking about it makes me want to run from the room.
uh, the anyone who has the typing sound effect on their phone, I think they're basically serial killer material.
I guess I
It's,
should turn that off.
it is the app, like not only is it like just a repetitive sound that I can't control, which is really what it comes down to, is the lack of control. But what is that for? Like, you're typing, you're looking at it. So what is that sound even
Maybe if
for?
it lets you know if you missed a letter,
No.
you're expecting a sound, you didn't hear it.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
but
know.
you're
I mean,
still
I have
looking
it
at
turned on.
it. You see it all the time.
Theoretically,
You see it all the time in movies because they need to be representing that the person touching their phone is typing. So every show that I watch, like as soon as someone starts texting, that you hear that sound, even though in the real world, like 1 in 100 people has to turn on.
It's constant reassurance. It's like a little hug after every letter. Love it.
You're like, all right, E, click. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. That's
Good
oh,
job, Nick. That's what it is.
I got to get some tissues.
I wrote an encyclopedia and I had to have a cold shower.
Oh yeah.
So I mean that was a strange thing about it, is that I feel for him as being hypersensitive, but it, back to Jack's point, he continues to get irritated by the smoke detector beeping, even though he could have fixed that at any point. He also takes no responsibility for fixing his environment.
No, he just kind of
I mean, I
freaks
think we're
out.
missing the larger point. I mean, it's manifest. His grief is manifesting as audio. I
Yeah, I'm
did
with you.
not really think the actual sounds were the problem at any time. It was his perception.
Yeah, well, it's his perception of those sounds, and it's the lack, and again, it's that lack of control, because that's the irritating part of sounds like that, is the lack of control. It's not the sound itself. It's why no one's irritated by their own phone making a message notice, but everyone around them has nothing to do with that, so it's just a sound. Um,
Especially in a movie theater.
oh, especially in movie theater.
And if he hadn't gone, the only time he sought any sort of help, if he hadn't gone to a quack, I think this whole thing would have been a whole lot shorter.
It was an interesting scene, because it was all about, yeah, because he goes to see the psychiatrist, who seems to want to talk about himself quite a lot. And then
So it's a typical psychiatrist.
yeah.
If you got a good one, that's not happening. But trust me, that happens often.
the but yeah, it's that he doesn't, he thinks that the guy's telling
By
a
the way,
white
he
lie.
wasn't a psychiatrist. Wasn't he a motivational therapist?
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right that he was.
Yeah, he was the stop smoking guy.
Yeah, he was occupational therapist or something like that, or like
Yeah.
someone that the company supplied. Yeah. So back to Nick's original point about the view of mental health that's provided. It's everyone knows what's been going on in his life. Everyone's like, and no one's stepping up to have a man to man with him or anything. They're just like, we know that it's been a hard time, and suck it up. You could have taken a couple of days off. You didn't want to.
Yeah, he didn't take like after his, he the tragedy. They talk about how he doesn't even take any time off. Like he's a weird dude to begin with.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings about, like, at times this episode had had a lot of black comedy stuff happening because he is so strange,
Yeah.
and you're like, is this or like it's not horror, that's for sure. Like I don't know really where to place this episode, because there's times when it's black comedy. There's some outlying horror, I suppose. There's just drama, like
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly to categorize it under.
It's tough because I mean, I thought through most of the episode it could have been an Outer Limits or a Twilight Zone. Like it didn't quite fit with the not that there's a single tone to this series, but it still didn't feel that horror. Like it didn't feel, except for until you're into the final bit, it really didn't feel that much different than something like Shatterday from the 80s Twilight Zone. It's about someone slowly losing connection with reality.
Twilight Zone twist at the end, it's
Yeah.
actually his boy communicating with him or something.
Yeah, like really it's the ending that sets it aside as like the last 10 minutes sets it from horror as opposed to like an overall tone.
We talk about his superpower at the hearing. Let's not forget his super speed, because at the end he manages to go from looking outside, seeing police walking to his door, to the basement where he's put on a garbage bag, sharpened a knife, and gets out of the house with his doing damage to himself before the police knock. Like that is like, he doesn't just have Superman's hearing, he has Superman's speed. Am I wrong?
He does make good time. Or devil's advocate, the police could be incredibly slow.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's all relative.
Thought of it that way. They're turtles.
No Canada spotting this one. I tried to track down that duck pond that they visit, but couldn't find it. It does appear to be the Vancouver skyline. Or I shouldn't say appear, but it is the Vancouver skyline that they see in the background. That's as much as Canada spotting as I could get.
It does have that. Like I say, I mean, I think that they did as good a job with the sound field as they could have. It would have been, with proper three-dimensional sound, would have been a more interesting episode, I think. They did do the one scene where he's kind of losing his head, and the rain is falling, and he's walking outside, and the hot dogs are sizzling, and like I thought that was extremely well shot. Like I thought that was really effectively done, and that was good direction, definitely.
I think that mixed in a proper surround or in a high end sound would be really cool. I think you could do really interesting things playing with the channels, but and there probably is a 5.1 of this, a mix of this, if I wanted to track down the DVD of it. But I don't think I don't think the time and
There's a difference between 5.1 and true 3D. Atmos sound effects that is situational and properly. Just having it coming out 5.1 wouldn't be enough to make it as effective as it needs to be.
Yeah.
But as far as that scene, I thought that was really well directed.
The problem may have been this was just not a good story to shoot as a television show. I would I think a radio play of some sort might have been more interesting.
Something where you're more focused on the audio. It occurs to me that everything we're talking about how the audio is mixed and how certain effects are done. This was a short story. How compelling was this environment in text? Like that's an interesting thing to go back on now, is that, we're really focused.
You could go into his head a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than just watching him grimace.
Yeah, I think it does it. The way that they've done it pushes you toward focusing on the sound itself, as opposed to what you were saying, Nick, about how this is it's a reflection and a symptom of his deeper, depression and anxiety and just like mourning on a level that we can't even imagine.
And I think everyone can relate to the hypersensitivity. I felt sort of like this. I haven't killed anybody, and I haven't even squashed any mice.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like anybody's believing that.
That was the one scene I had to look away.
It goes away, and I don't feel that anymore. So it's relatable in that sense. So I get the horror of it, or the scariness of it. I don't know if it's horror. Just in relation to some of the other episodes, I didn't get this one as much.
Again, I think it would have been more effective if he was more likable, because then you'd feel for him and the torture he's going through, and the trauma and seeing him fall apart. You'd feel for him more if he was more likable, but because he's just kind of a dick, and he has that really odd scene with that the kid he works with in the park and all that stuff. Like,
that is a weird scene.
It is a weird ass scene, dude.
That guy had weird hair.
Everything about that.
I hadn't thought of it that way. But weird hair. That's worth noting. But yeah, I mean, I think that's where it falls apart, is that the character is not likable enough for you really to feel like you're going along the journey with them.
But if the character was more likable, would his pain come across? I mean, we never actually get to see him before the death of his son. So him being an asshole is sort of just a symptom of what's going on.
Yeah, it is one of the challenges.
He was an a-hole even beforehand.
The one scene. So he's in the park. He's talking to one of his a younger coworker, one of his staff, and then he starts imagining he's talking to his son, and that is the only glimpse we get of what he was like as a family man. And even that, it's not a flashback. It's him, drifting off from reality, imagining that this is his son he's talking to. So yeah, we don't get to see him happy. We don't get to see. We don't even get a feel for, why his wife is with him or anything like that.
Other than she's weird.
Yeah, I mean, she's pretty weird. Yeah.
Well, pretty hot.
Maybe a different job. I mean, you're not really immediately go, I like the call center worker. So you're already set up to hate him right off the bat.
My younger brother's been a call center manager for 20 years. That's hilarious.
That, you know what? That makes a lot of sense.
That's his whole job. Yeah, he basically has this job. He's a supervisor and trainer. Yeah.
Does he enjoy cutting off and terminating the calls as much as this guy apparently does?
I'll have
You're
to
talking
ask.
to that person for an extra 35 seconds and making them feel good about their day. That's
They might have actually enjoyed
inefficient.
that. Yeah, they might have enjoyed that interaction. What are you doing?
Maybe you can answer this. I was wondering in this about, do they actually time the calls like this
Yes.
and try to reduce the time people are on the phone?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is some anal shit.
So much of these Joe jobs are timed. I worked at a coffee shop that was heavily drive-through, and there's a giant clock on the wall counting down.
But that has to do with customer service, not.
That's what that's all a phone support is.
Yeah, but I mean, people, if they're talking to customer support, they want to be helped through something, but not in record time. But anytime I've called one of those, I keep those guys on the line forever.
Well, I'll see if I get my brother on to do an episode where we
Yeah,
really
that's what I'm wondering. It's like you asked, maybe you can answer this, and I'm like, no, he said his brother works there, not him.
Well, I don't know. He talks to his brother. If it's that big of a thing, I mean, that's all we learned about the call
center. Well, it does sound like
is that they're supposed to be like really quick on the phone.
It does sound like the fascinating type of work where you go, tell me every detail, please. He talks to his brother. I don't think. Tell me all the good stories right now.
I will now.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I mean, what you really want to get from someone who works at a call center is the crazy calls. But I'm gonna ask more details about how they evaluate staff based on call time and call success. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really what we all want to know.
I'll text him as soon as we're done with this. Yeah.
So did we learn anything this episode?
That's
a no. That's a no. All right then. Anything left to say about the episode?
Sounds like you can skip this one.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's not in the top 5.
No.
All right. Well, we're moving on. Next time we will be doing season 2, episode 5, which is called Pro-Life, or more specifically, John Carpenter's Pro-Life,
which works as a title and a statement.
That's right. Is pro-life with a hyphen, so pro-life, not the life of a professional something. It's a
professional.
That's the film I want to see. That's an episode. Sign me up.
That's a great.
By the time that this, I'll give a little spoiler alert. By the time that this next episode comes around, that'll be 4 straight episodes in a row of nudity. Luckily, after Carpenter is Argento, so that probably will end.
We might have a swing there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are the Cult Film Showdown. You can find us on Instagram and on Patreon and on YouTube. And please rate and review our podcast on all your favorite podcast app. It helps other people find the show. And please listen to every episode on YouTube 3 or 4 times. It really boosts the recommendations, and also subscribe there.
10 or 15 times, you mean?
Yeah, just like whenever you're at your computer, I think you can have us on. Just we do have late night radio voices, very calming, and we are sponsored by We Talk Podcasts. WeTalkPodcast.com is the home of the Octagon, where we keep track of our temporarily paused search for the ultimate B movie.
Year-long pause.
Yes, it's a pregnant pause. And also they have a Facebook page and they have a Twitter. And we will talk to you next time.